Okay, Madam Chair, council members and participants, we are now live.
Thank you. Thank you to our council team. I understand this is the Committee on Appropriations meeting today, Monday, March 8th. I understand that state law currently requires that all the following announcements be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, city council committees are currently meeting remotely. We're using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of city council are included in the public hearing notice that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and the Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phillycouncil.com. I know that the hour has come. Eric, would you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance, will you please indicate that you are present when your name is called? Also say a few brief words when responding so that your image can be displayed on screen when you speak.
Councilmember Quinones-Sanchez.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Thomas.
Present.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Present.
Councilmember Heenan.
Present.
Councilmember Dom.
Present.
And we are additionally joined today by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. I want to thank you. Good afternoon, all. Thank you to the council members. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing will be called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Appropriations regarding Bill number 210160. David, our clerk, will you please read the title of the bill? You're on mute.
Sorry. Bill number 210160, authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2021 from the general fund, the council, to the general fund, the managing director.
Additionally, prior to recognizing members for questions or committees that they have for witnesses, I will note for the record that at this time, the chat feature will be available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized in order to comply with the Sunshine Act. That chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Before I call on the first panel, I'll recognize Councilmember Thomas, who's a member of the committee, and ask him to recognize his colleague, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, who is also a co-sponsor of this bill. So I'm going to recognize you, and then we'll call the panel.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody on the committee for being here today, and thank you to the entire team as it relates to our colleagues in council for considering this bill as an option. I would definitely want to start by acknowledging my colleague who is here today, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, who is the co-chair of the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force. And for those who don't know, this work comes out of the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force. Council President charged us to listen to citizens all across the city of Philadelphia, whether it relates to their geographical region or particular profession. And through that work, we were really challenged by a lot of different industries, but none like the arts and culture community. And so through the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force, we were really challenged to create the Arts and Culture Task Force, which has been focused on not just the flaws as it relates to different treatment from the city to the industry, but just ways that the industry can come together. And so we've been laser sharp focused as it relates to listening to the task force, listening to their needs and their concerns. And we've also tried our best to put ourselves in a position to respond to their needs and concerns. And it starts with us as a city, and it hopefully becomes something that is contagious. And so in the midst of listening to them, one of the things that was communicated with a sense of urgency was the need for stimulus dollars, and stimulus dollars that would be able to trickle down to individual artists, to nonprofit organizations, small, large, well, predominantly small, and then also to small businesses as well, too. And so we are here today to hopefully vote on something that can provide and hopefully offer some support in a leg and a crutch. We know that this isn't the permanent solution, but we're hoping to be able to help provide what we'll call a Band-Aid for right now, But then overall, we're hoping to send a message that basically says that it's a new day in the city of Philadelphia as it relates to the arts and culture community. And we want to do even more than what's been done in the past. Although it's been great, we want to do even more as it relates to supporting projects, initiatives, and helping the recovery of the arts and culture community. So thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity for comments. I know my colleague, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, has been with me in the midst of this work. I know she might want to make some comments as well, but I appreciate the opportunity to make a few opening remarks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and to my colleagues on the Appropriations Committee. I'm thankful to join you this afternoon as you deliberate on the legislation that was co-introduced by Councilmember Thomas and myself in support of the arts and culture community in Philadelphia, but particularly the small arts and culture organizations and individual proprietors who are working in the arts and culture space. I would be remiss if I did not mention all the years of working with the arts and culture community when I was a staffer for former council member Blondell Reynolds Brown, who did a lot of work with the arts and culture community. And we were able to, as Councilmember Thomas stated, hear from a number of those organizations, but particularly the smaller ones, during our in-depth discussions with the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force. And I remember that specific session with the Arts and Culture Community Task Force. We were on for several hours. And as a result of that initial meeting and subsequent meetings, the development of the Arts and Culture Task Force, which is really part of the impetus of why we're here today. So I just implore my colleagues to understand that the arts and culture community has been decimated by this pandemic, as in all other sectors across our city. And they need our help and support. And with this legislation, we are hoping to help the small arts and culture organizations, those individual proprietors, the ones who are typically not supported with the other grant opportunities because of their revenue amounts. We want to help those individuals who have not been helped in the past. We want to do all we can for them and hope to be able to do more for the arts and culture community as we move forward, and even particularly in this year's budget process. So I implore you, colleagues, to vote in favor of this legislation. I will be joining you and listening on the hearing today, and I thank you so much, Madam Chair. And last, I want to thank our council president and the leadership team vision around the new normal budget, which has enabled us to do more than we thought we could originally. So thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have here for today, everyone has been invited to attend the meeting to testify should be aware that this is a public hearing and it is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be on the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing the folks, we spoke about the chat feature should only be used for this. So David, will you please call the first panel to testify this afternoon on bill number 210160?
Kelly Lee.
Good afternoon. You are connected. Before you proceed, I just want to thank Kelly Lee. I know that this has been a tough year for everyone. It's always particularly hard after coming through a budget cycle where we saw a lot of money move away from the arts and culture community. As Council Member Gilmore Richardson alluded to, this council has been extremely committed to the arts and culture work, in part because of the work of Blondell Reynolds Brown, who came and was very active. Many of the members participate, as I have in the past, on the Cultural Fund Board. So this council has not been gun shy about saying this is an important sector. It's one that we have to support. And as Councilmember Thomas mentioned today, we know that this is an ongoing conversation. We look forward to the broader conversation and the new budget, and making sure that the economic impact of what this particular sector does for the city is very important to a recovery. And the recovery should be one where we understand the inequities that existed in the past and that we're committed to a more inclusive, broader processes as we move forward. I want to thank you, Kelly, for working with my council colleagues, as you've done with Councilman O, with the Committee on the Global Economy, and for all your help and support in navigating this, right? Because unfortunately, you get the majority of the complaints coming in through you. And so we appreciate you and the work that you are doing. So with that, our director, Kelly Lee.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Kiona Sanchez and members of the committee. I am Kelly Lee, the Chief Cultural Officer for the City of Philadelphia and a Director of the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy. I want to thank you for providing me with this opportunity to testify regarding Bill number 210160, which would authorize the transfer of $1.3 million in funds to the Managing Director's Office for Arts and Culture. I think, we all agree that the arts are an integral part of Philadelphia's identity. Arts and culture impact the well-being of our communities and our neighborhoods. The arts heal and bring people together and generate a significant tax revenue for the city of Philadelphia. Sadly, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has greatly affected the Philadelphia's entire arts and cultural landscape, and many artists and arts organizations are facing drastic circumstances threatening their ability to rebuild and resume operations post-pandemic. I'm sure that, the four presenters in the next panel will attest to this and provide data to support the devastating impact of COVID on the arts. But should the proposed transfer ordinance be approved by council, the Office of Arts and Culture look forward to working and partnering with council's Arts and Culture Task Force and the other organizations on the panel to target these funds and to support the most vulnerable part of the cultural sector, individual artists and small and mid-sized creative organizations with budgets below $500,000. I thank you again for inviting me to participate. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Again, thank you, Kelly Lee, for all your work. Philadelphia is rich in many major institutions, but the work of the Disadvantages Task Force has really demonstrated that there is a sector, a creative sector, that we want to encourage in their innovation and their transformation as they move through this difficult time. So we appreciate your work and your willingness to work with our colleagues, Council Member Gilmore Richardson and Councilmember Thomas, at getting at this time, at this place, and at this space, but understanding that there's more work to be done. So with that, Councilmember Thomas wanted to add something. Councilmember Thomas?
Yes, good afternoon. I just want to take a moment just to say thank you to Kelly, just because I had the opportunity to meet Kelly when I was sworn in last year, and her advocacy for the arts and culture community and her passion is one that is essentially unmatched. And in the midst of us working with the Arts and Culture Task Force, she has been extremely responsive. She won the hearts of so many different people in the task force. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do right now in the midst of the work that we have to do as members of council is to try to get confidence, not just in the citizens of Philadelphia, but in people all across the country. We are one of the leaders in the entire country as it relates to the hospitality industry, tourism attractions, and things of that capacity. And for us to really thrive on the other side of this coronavirus the way we need to, it starts here at home. And I think Kelly is a strong advocate and a great person to be able to have at the helm as it relates to putting us in a position to try to restore trust between the arts and culture community and city government. Because it's been great work done in the past, and we all know that. But when this crisis presented itself as it relates to coronavirus, it flipped everything upside down. And I think we have to put ourselves in a position where not only are we restoring some things that happened in the past, but we're innovative in as it relates to how we think, who we support, what we're doing, and how we can put ourselves in a position to advocate for the entire arts and culture community. And I think Kelly has that vision as well, too. So no questions for Kelly. Just wanted to say thank you, let her know I appreciate her. And I'm looking forward to working with her, not just on this initiative, but more initiatives moving forward to really support the arts and culture community. Thank you. I appreciate it, Madam Chair. And like Councilmember Gilmore Richardson said, I did want to say thank you to my colleagues as well, too. And not just ask them to vote for this, but just the intention as it relates to investing in disadvantaged communities is very much appreciated. And I always love that there's a ton of advocacy and energy around these type of issues. So thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you. And of course, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I really wanted to just echo the sentiments of my colleague and my co-chair, Councilman Thomas, and thanking Kelly Lee. A large part of this process, particularly for the smaller organizations and the smaller arts and culture organizations and sole proprietors is around building trust. And we found that Kelly has the trust of those smaller arts and culture organizations. And we are looking forward to partnering with you and working with you as we move forward. So I just wanted to say thank you, Kelly, for your work and for continuing to build trust within the arts and culture community, particularly for the smaller organizations.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions for Kelly Lee, then David, can you call our next panel? Thank you. And I'm going to ask you, Kelly, to stay in the hearing in case anything else, but we shouldn't be too long. David, would you please read the next witnesses list?
They are Aaliyah Duncan, Barbara Silsley, Nicole Allen White, and Priscilla Luce.
Aaliyah?
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay.
You can proceed with your testimony. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Hi, my name is Aaliyah Duncan. I am leader and organizer of the Philadelphia Culture United, board member of the Recording Academy Philadelphia's Grammy chapter, publicist in the music and entertainment industry, and Philadelphia resident. I would like to thank council members Thomas and Gilmore Richardson, along with Council President Darrell Clark, for their leadership regarding this bill. And I'm here to testify in support of today's Arts Transfer Ordinance. Arts and culture is essential to the city of Philadelphia and our shared humanity. Without immediate support for our sector, the city of Philadelphia will not fully recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and full-time jobs and thousands more roles occupied by gig workers across our city will be permanently impacted. That is why the Illuminate the Arts grant is absolutely critical for the city of Philadelphia. It is critical to know the arts is an economic driver largely held up by an invisible workforce made up of tens of thousands of contract employees, such as stagehands, venue support staff, lighting and set designers, artists, ticket ushers, sound engineers, and so many others. This invisible workforce who enables the arts and entertainment industry to thrive are being left behind and forgotten even under new proposed relief plans. They are suffering in silence, and the Illuminate the Arts grant is necessary for their survival. In addition, lack of arts funding also disproportionately affects community organizations that facilitate equitable access to the arts, many of which serve our young people, impoverished communities, Black communities, and people of color citywide. These are the organizations who annually operate with a budget of less than $150,000. Their doors have been shuttered, and without our support, they will not be able to serve their populations in the future. All of this, and still the arts and culture sector has historically only occupied less than 0.5% of the city's budget pre-COVID. The Illuminate the Arts grant is one step in filling this wide gap, and it is imperative because if we are not willing to properly support the arts immediately, all parts of it, from gig workers to arts organizations to creatives who make up the fabric of our culturally rich city, we will not have an arts and culture sector to revive in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go through the 4 testimonies and then I'll open it up for questions. Barbara?
Hello, I'm Barbara Silsley, the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Cultural Fund. Thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly about the importance of this infusion of funds to Philadelphia's arts sector, which continues to be devastated by COVID-19. And many thanks to the council members for recognizing the urgency of this moment. It's encouraging to see these emergency funds coming to Philadelphia's artists and arts organizations. It's very important to the city as the city recovers. We understand that the recovery will take some time. And the Philadelphia Cultural Fund is hopeful that by the city taking this action, it recognizes that the arts are critical to the city's recovery. It's important that the city sees the Philadelphia Cultural Fund as a vital and highly regarded partner in supporting the city's arts community. And it's so very important that the city's support of the arts continue beyond this moment and be reflected in the Cultural Fund's fiscal year 22 allocation and beyond. The Philadelphia Cultural Fund stands with the city in its commitment to the arts now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nicole. I believe I saw her sign in. Nicole Allen. Hi, lady. You're on mute.
Muted. Okay. Should have figured that out a year in. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Quinones Sanchez and other members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Nicole Allen White. I'm the Director of Government and External Affairs and Interim Deputy Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access for the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I also serve on the board of the Philadelphia Cultural Fund. On behalf of the museum, I'm here to offer testimony in support of Bill number 210160, which would provide grant funds for individual artists and small arts organizations. The cultural sector is critical to the fabric of our city. The sector improves the quality of life for our residents, serves as an invaluable educational resource for our young people, and attracts millions of visitors to the city every year. While the Philadelphia Museum of Art is the city's iconic landmark and one of its crown jewels, it is the entirety of the cultural ecosystem supported by individual artists, large and small nonprofits, and creative for-profit businesses that benefit Philadelphia and Philadelphians. The COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating to the city's arts and culture sector. Individual artists and small organizations have borne the brunt of this devastation. Funding such as the proposed grants created by this transfer ordinance are a lifeline to ensuring that people and organizations that help drive the sector are able to contribute to the recovery. However, this must not be the only financial assistance to the sector. I hope it's only the beginning. This spring, the Art Museum will unveil the long-awaited results of the core project, which includes 2 new gallery spaces, one for the display of early American art and the other for modern and contemporary art. The inaugural presentations in both galleries center on Philadelphia as an artistic capital of the country and the world. The early American galleries will highlight Philadelphia's historical role as a center for artistic commerce by indigenous, African, and European makers and artisans in pre-colonial and colonial times. The contemporary galleries will open with the exhibition New Grit, Art in Philly Now, featuring the work of 25 individual artists whose life and or work is deeply connected to Philadelphia. These exhibitions speak to the city's past and present. What remains uncertain is the future if there are not significant investments made in the sector to ensure that it will continue to thrive post-pandemic. The museum applauds City Council and specifically Councilman Thomas and Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson for championing the importance of this sector to the economic and social well-being of the city. We support your efforts and look forward to continued collaboration as we build back and strengthen our thriving and diverse cultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we'll wait till after Priscilla and then we'll open it up to questions. Priscilla?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today. I am Priscilla Luce, Interim President and CEO of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. I offer the support of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance for Ordinance number 210160, creating the Illuminate the Arts grants as proposed by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson and Councilman Thomas. These emergency funds, which respond to the immense financial need of the arts and culture community due to COVID-19, could not come at a more crucial moment. Next week, the Cultural Alliance will preview for City Council new data showing the growing financial crisis within our sector. 1 year into the pandemic, this $1 million marks the first significant emergency funding from the city received by arts and culture, which is a $4.1 billion economic engine for the Philadelphia region. No artist, no gig worker, and no arts organization has been unaffected, and all are suffering greatly. This is an important first step, but it cannot be the last. As additional CARES funding is made available, we look forward to working closely with Council to ensure that arts and culture, which fuels tourism, restaurants, and tax revenue, and is so integral to education and the workforce, is part of the long-term recovery plan for Philadelphia. We also stand ready to support the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy to ensure that this critical funding quickly reaches the individual artists and small arts organizations which are suffering so greatly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your partnership and the significant data collection that you gather and help us as we really have uplifted the sector. And again, I know that there was a lot of pivoting during COVID. I want to assure this particular sector in particular, and I know I've had many conversations with Holly and others, this budget has to look different. It has to feel different if this sector is going to survive and help us in this recovery. So we're well aware of it. And I know there was a lot of things that happened. Sorry it took us this long to get here. This budget will be different, and we can have those conversations earlier. The work with the Disadvantaged Committee and Councilmember Thomas and Gilmore Richardson, you guys have really gained some really strong allies in this, and I hope that as we progress through the budget that you will see that we understand the value of this so very much. So I'm going to open it up for questions from my colleagues, and I see that Councilmember Thomas wants to be recognized. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. And honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think I was going to, first of all, just say thank you to the entire panel, not just for testifying here today, but first and foremost, taking the time to meet with myself and members of the Arts and Culture Task Force to talk about issues in the community, and more importantly, for giving us as government another chance and another opportunity, not just to earn their trust as champions and pillars in the arts and culture community, but more importantly, to pick their brain and to use them as resources so we can collectively work together to figure out what can we do to assure that the industry not just recovers but thrives. Because like it was said in testimony by this panel, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that we rely on as it relates to our city. Outside of the mental health side, we have been struggling in the last year or so being in the house, and there's nothing like being able to gather in the name of arts and the arts community to put people in a position where they can have some level of entertainment as well as some level of relief. I think that will help us with a lot of the ills that we see currently in our municipality. And I appreciate everybody here. I also wanted to just put a plug in for our recovery week for the arts and culture community. That is something that we really want to make sure it happens sometime this summer. We have tentative dates, nothing etched in stone, but we want to talk to the health department, and we want all these partners here to help us figure out what do we do to assure that the arts and culture community recovers in a strong and equitable and effective way. So thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. But most importantly, thank you to every one of those panelists who took the time to testify in favor of this bill today. And I look forward to working with each of you moving forward so we can continue to do the great work that the city of Philadelphia needs. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. You and my colleagues said it all, but I wanted to personally thank every person on this panel for your testimony and wanted you to know that we recognize this is an important first step, an important first investment after COVID-19 for the arts and culture community. We are doing all that we can to a very robust dialogue and conversation to figure out exactly what more we can do moving forward. But I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for your testimony, and especially Kelly. We look forward to working with your office and the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy around this first step, because we know it'll be important as we continue to build trust in the arts and culture community. So Kelly, I look forward to working with you and your team and the Arts and Culture Task Force as we move ahead. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Council Member. It is not lost on me this group of women leading this conversation. Gotta do it. I'm sorry. It's too easy. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Elijah, all of you. Is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 210160 whose name hasn't been called? Seeing none, if there's no other members of this committee have any questions, we are going to conclude our public hearing and go into our public meeting. There being no further questions from members and no other witnesses testify, if there's no one else here present whose name I failed to call on this bill, hearing none, I want to thank all of the panel witnesses for their participation today. We value your opinions. Now we invite all panel witnesses who come to testify to disconnect from the meeting as we go into our public meeting. We will pause a couple of minutes to allow you all to disconnect briefly. Thank you all, ladies.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, madam.
This concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into our public meeting to consider the actions on the bills before this committee. Once again, I want to thank my council colleagues for joining us this afternoon and helping us get through this public meeting. The public meeting will now convene. Eric, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members again are asked if you're in attendance to please indicate that you're present when your name is called and say a few brief words so that we can have your image displayed on the screen.
Councilmember Quinones Sanchez.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Thomas.
Present.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Present.
Councilmember Heenan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am present.
And Councilmember Dom.
Present.
Thank you all so much, again, to the council colleagues. As this bill moves forward, this is part of our new normal budget, and all of you have been an instrumental part in getting us to this place where we could do this work. So I want to thank you all. So with that, the chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson for a motion on bill number 210160.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 210160 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes that for the record, that Councilmember O'Neill second the motion, or was it Thomas? I'm sorry. Councilmember Thomas. It has been moved and properly second that bill number 210160 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. This concludes the meeting of the business before the Committee of Appropriations. The council chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just as we conclude the meeting and wrap up, I just want to acknowledge the hard work of council members Isaiah Thomas and Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson. They put a lot of hard work in hosting their virtual disadvantaged communities hearings all throughout the city of Philadelphia. So I watched them doing that hard work in the middle of a pandemic, and just wanted to publicly acknowledge them for their hard work and dedication around this issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas, did you also want to be recognized?
No, Madam Chair, I was just saying thank you to Councilmember Johnson. I appreciate it. You know, it means a lot coming from him and coming from you guys. We appreciate your support and can't do without you guys. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you to all our members. This concludes the business before appropriations. All of you have a good and safe day.
Take care.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy International Women's Day.